Hey guys, what's going on? Podcast episode 11 here for Volganos translations, and I apologize, it's a little late. I got lazy. I had like the whole week off. Classes just ended. I don't start work until like 3 days from now, Monday. I just got lazy. I've been playing too much Bloodborne, enjoying the challenge that presented in it. So it makes me miss Monster Hunter. My 3DS has not come back yet. No word on when it's going to come back yet either. Hopefully soon, because I'm starting to get pretty impatient now, but not a lot I can do. So just hoping I haven't been bamboozled, which I don't think I have. So anyway, let's get into it. Those are the only updates I had. Today we want to talk about the bow, one of my actual favorite weapons from Unite when it was super overpowered, and it's still pretty strong now. I mean, you see a lot of gunners out there, and you wonder, man, like, how do they fucking do gunning? Because it just takes so much resources and money, and your inventory is always super full. Like, how annoying is that? Well, I don't know about them, but a gateway to gunning for me was the bow, because yes, it's gunning, but it's super easy to pick up. I mean, there's not a lot of understanding involved. It's a nice introductory to get you used to how to play as a gunner, because as a gunner you have like a lot less defense. I don't want to say half, but it's on the upper side of half the defense from you would with a normal set. And once you max everything out, it gets a little closer, of course, like 3/4 or something like that. But nonetheless, it's a lot lower defense than you would with a Blade Master, because you're out of the way. You're not supposed to be getting hit, right? And so the best gunners go through and they don't get hit, and they apply a lot of damage. They do a lot of status ailments, whatever. And the bow is sort of the same way. The bow, to me, is a part breaker, right? Because they can focus on really easily the best spots to hit a monster, so the weak spots or the parts that need to break, especially if they're difficult. So to me, the status ailments and stuff don't apply so much to a bow as breaking parts do. So think of it that way. And again, you got to watch out. And if you're in a group, it's a lot easier because monsters focus on you as much. Solo, it's a little more difficult, but we'll get to all that in a little minute. So the bow actually does have pretty good damage over time, pretty high if you can crank it out really quickly. So keep that in mind, that it's not like a pussy weapon or something. Like, you can go out there and do some real damage with this thing. Like I said, it's really good at reaching parts to break that are difficult to reach, right? But you can't really cut tails with it. You can, it's possible. Not worth your time or effort. Holy Christ, no. And when I pick a bow, I usually tend to go for raw damage over an elemental damage, just for the frequency of attacks. I don't know. To me, and it depends on the bow too, because there's different shots and stuff that play into that. But overall, my play style and the shots that I like, I tend to go for raw over element almost all the time. So the attacks for bow are really easy. You charge up using A, right? And so you charge up and you'll see these whooshy things going on, and that's new charge level. So you can fire it right away and it doesn't do much damage. But each bow will have up to 4 charge levels, right? So charge level 1 is the weakest, charge level 2 is stronger, charge level 3 is like pretty much the bare minimum you ever want to use. And charge level 4, if it's available, is really strong almost all the time, right? And we'll get to why it might not be available in a little bit. So the charges using A uses a lot of stamina. The whole time you're drawing it back, it's using stamina, and that is a serious problem. So you really have to keep that in mind and watch your stamina very closely. Probably the worst thing about the bow is how much stamina that it actually uses. So those different charge levels correspond to different arrow types. So there's 3 different arrow types, or different shot types. So spread, rapid, and pierce. Spread is 5 arrows spread out in a horizontal fashion, which is really good for like inflicting status ailments, or maybe doing elemental damage or something. It doesn't do a whole lot of damage though, because it's spread off against 5 arrows. It's in a wide area. It really doesn't stack up. But for status ailments, that's fantastic. Rapid is another type. It's a vertical shot. It's 3 arrows vertically, and they can be pretty concentrated. They spread out the more they they travel, of course, but it can be pretty concentrated area, not so much like the spread. Rapid shots are really good for damage and part breaking because they can be so concentrated, and because each arrow does a little more damage than they would in the spread type. Pierce is my favorite shot, close first to rapid. It's really good for damage, particularly with larger monsters, obviously, because you want to get as many hits through the pierce as possible. I think it hits like 5 times, so you want to get the length of the monster, which to me, when you're soloing, you can do really easily because the monster's always facing you, right? And so you can do a lot of damage with pierce. Now, it's good for breaking parts, but it's not as good as rapid because, again, you're getting the most damage as it travels further through the monster. So if you're trying to break apart, you really don't want to use pierce a whole lot. You're going to want to use rapid if you have it. But it's probably better than spread because you can still get that focus shot on it, right? So each of those shots across different charge levels have different levels in themselves. So you might have like a pierce level 3, pierce level 4, pierce level 5. It's pretty self-explanatory. The higher the number, the more damage it's going to do, right? So bows also have a very interesting feature. They have an alternate attack. Each bow is different. There's for the most part, there's 3 different types. Actually 2 different types and then a few subtypes. So there's the 2 different types of alternate shots you can fire besides the normal spread, rapid, and pierce are mortar shots, right? So you charge up with A, and then you can press B when you're charging up to do a mortar shot. What this is it's exactly what it sounds like. Instead of firing it forward, your character will lean back, pop the bow into the air, and shoot the arrow way off high in the air, right? And it'll come down vertically, almost directly on top of, pretty much directly on top of a monster. And this is a very interesting effect, right? It can actually change a lot of things. So there's different types of subtypes in this mortar class. So you have explosive, focused, and wide range. So explosive is pretty self-explanatory again. It's explosive shot. You fire it up and it comes down as a big explosion, and it's awesome. It's amazing for stunning monsters, right? It does a little bit of KO damage, but really it does a lot of damage in a small area in a short amount of time. So it's really good for closing the gap to stunning monsters, right? Because it also is an explosion. The downside of that is it will also blow up your teammates a lot, right? Because the damage radius is pretty small, but the explosion radius is pretty large. So if you're firing these mortar shots, these explosive mortar shots off, which I actually do like mortars, it's pretty awesome, on a small monster particularly, or if your teammates are around that area, they're going to hate you pretty quick, right? It's just like doing nothing but ground pounding on a Kieran. It's disastrous, right? The other type is focused, and it's a small area. It's a barrage of arrows. So you fire it in the air, and it comes down like 10 different hits or something like that. It's ridiculous, but each one is sort of low, but it adds up to quite a bit. But it's in a focused area, right? So it's really good for focusing on like a monster's back or something. Like if you wanted to break a monster's back really easily, you're going to use that focused area because it's going to hit the back. A lot of arrows are going to come right down on the area that is really difficult to reach. And you find that with tons of monsters, especially Najarala. Like breaking Najarala's back is actually really difficult because it's so high up. But the mortar shot takes care of it super easily. It's also really good for KO because all the mortar shots do KO damage automatically. And if it's really you have a monster falling down, you do the mortar shots right in the head, which you can line up. Get to that in a second. You can KO within a few mortars, and it's really cool when like you have no blunt damage and you have one bow guy, and all of a sudden the monster gets KO'd, and like who the fuck did it? And it's like it was me. Then you have wide range, which it's like the focused. It's a barrage of arrows that come down on the monster, but it's spread over like 2 or 3 times the radius, and it's just I don't know. I don't really like it ever because it hits your players, your teammates, and it interrupts them, much like pellet shot would, where it kind of just stops them, flinches them. It doesn't blast them away, but it flinches them, which is really almost even more annoying. And doesn't do a lot of damage to the monster in this focused area because a lot of the arrows are actually going to miss smaller monsters. If it's large, sure, it'll hit them all, but I don't know. It just doesn't really seem worth it. So if anything, I'd stick to explosive and focused and just kind of ignore the wide range. That's my personal opinion. So the other type of alternate attack is a power shot, and this is new, so I apologize if some of these facts are wrong, but I think I have a decent understanding of it. So after you release an arrow, you're charged up with A, and you'll release an arrow. Immediately after that, you push B, I believe, or it might be A. I don't remember. It's been like 3 weeks since I played. Pretty sure it's B, though. So as soon as you fire an arrow, you push the button again, and you shoot another arrow, right? And it doesn't take any coatings or anything. It doesn't use anything up. It doesn't whatever. It's a bonus shot. And the thing about this is it's just one charge level up from the previous shot you just fired, right? So that's really useful. It can be extremely powerful, and it's right where you fired it too. So you get like double bang for your buck. For pierce shots, I mean, it's fucking amazing, right? You pierce twice in a row and go through it, and especially if you use coatings, which I will get to, of course, in a second. It doesn't use up one coating, so you get double the coating. So it's really useful for certain monsters, just as the mortar shot would be, and you should definitely play around with it. It's can really stack up the damage, like really stack it up really quickly, because again, you're getting twice the shots for your stamina usage, which is really what you want. For bow, you want to get as much stamina usage as you can out of it. One final attack you can do is you can do a arrow slice. You're just standing without charging up, and you hit B twice, and he does some slices, and that's how you cut tails. But it's so weak and so small range and so not worth it ever. Just don't even pretend to use it. The only time I use it is if someone's like stunned or asleep. I use it to wake them up. That's about it. You can also hit X to back hop. I don't know. If you're standing still, you hit X, or is it A, or is it Y? I don't know. Whatever the bottom one is. Fuck, I haven't played in like 3 weeks. Whatever the bottom one is, I'm saying it's X because that's what I remember on the PlayStation. So it's X. You need a back hop. I usually just roll though. Back hop, whatever. Uses a lot of constitution, or uses a lot of stamina. You don't go very far. So the unique thing about bows, which is kind of like the transition to bows to gunner, is that bows use files, different coatings, right? So there's a few different coatings. You have power, paralyze, sleep, poison, exhaust, close, and blast. Most of them are pretty self-explanatory. Paralyze, sleep, and poison, you'll do those status ailments over time, right? Exhaust, same thing. It's a status ailment. Blast, same thing. It's a status ailment. You'll do enough damage, and the status, takes effect. Close is a little interesting. You have to be extremely close to monsters. It's a close range coating to use it, and it beefs up your melee attack, which, I don't know. I mean, you have to be really close as far as I remember from, past games to use this thing. So it's really not worth it unless, like, the monster's down on the ground. You're going up there and you're just blasting with, like, level 1s, which should you really be doing anyway? I don't know. So that's whatever. The only time close is useful is when, really useful, I think, is when you use the Seregios bow, which turns coating, or close coatings, into power coatings. So then it's definitely useful. So power coatings is the one you have to have, right? For every single bow ever, you should be using power coating, no matter what. And if you don't have it, try and socket that skill in. I think it's like a 5-socket skill. It might be less than that, or more than that. I think it's more than that. So power coating doubles, or gives you a damage multiplier for all of your attacks by 1.5, right? So all of your attacks, if they did 200 damage, will do 300 damage. It's insanely high, right? It's just so good you have to use power coating. And here's the other thing, too. Power coating is the only coating that you can carry more than 20 of. All the coatings you can only carry 20 coatings of, right? Power you can carry 50, which is phenomenal. Oh, yeah, and I guess I should go into how to load coatings. You load coatings with triangle and circle, or A and B, if that's what it is. I really don't remember. Whatever the top one is. So I might have it all back up, but whatever triangle would be on a PlayStation controller, and circle. Again, it's been so long. So you load the coatings up, whatever, and you can switch to. I like mapping the different coating slots to the lower screen on the 3DS, because then you can just tap on your thumb instead of scrolling through it with L, and you can keep your eye on the monster and everything too, which is really nice. So power coating is really useful, and to be honest, all the status ailments, you can bring stuff to combine all these coatings with, right? Like you can bring the nitro shrooms to make more power coatings, like 20 of them. You can bring parashrooms and mope shrooms and poison shrooms and everything, but to me it just isn't worth it, right? You can only bring like 10 of each, which means you get 10 more coatings. So you could have 30 coatings of some of these. Well, to be honest, most of the time it takes about 20 coatings to get one status ailment through. So just buy for very dirt cheap your 20 coatings before each quest and head out and do it. If you run out of coatings, you run out of coatings. That's the way I look at it. With the exception of power coatings, maybe you should bring a little bit more for that if it's going to be like a marathon quest or something, or multiple monster quests. But nonetheless, like I don't know, trying to do status elements with bow, one and done. Otherwise you just focusing too much on the wrong thing here. So solo use for bows, like I said before, it's actually pretty good because the monsters focus on you, so you can get a lot of different shots off. However, if you're trying to break certain parts, it can be a little more difficult, again, because you have to keep your range, you have to line up your shots. It's a little more difficult, but it does do high damage in the end. So you can you can complete the quest, but maybe you can't exactly get what you're going for. Oh, and lining up your shots, that's one thing I didn't mention. If you hold down R on the 3DS while you're charging, you actually get a really nice, I don't know what you call it, like reticle, which shows you where your arrow is going to go, as well as your mortar shot, which is really obvious. So I strongly recommend never ever bowing without holding down R to aim, and you can direct it with the D-pad and everything. And I believe I changed one of my options when I use bow. I think I've set bow aiming controls to type 2, which is how it was in Unite and all the past games. They use a weird setup in this game where like you aim differently or something, I don't know, but you can use the D-pad with type 2 to aim while you're locked onto a monster, and that really helps. Up and down to change everything, your pitch and all that, whatever. So definitely change to type 2 for your bow, and then definitely use the R aiming all the time so you can just see where your shots are going to go, right? Fantastic. I mean, it's the best, especially for mortar strikes, because you never know how far it's going to be unless you've been using the bow a lot, right? So the first charge will use it close, and the last 2 or 3 beyond the first charge for mortar strike will go a lot further. So you can really keep your distance, and it's efficient. So back to usage. Using it in groups, I really like using it online, the bow, because you can reach those hard-to-reach parts, like I said, like Najara's back, right? Or, anything's back, or, something's face or something. If the face is pointing right at you, it's a little higher off the ground, you just shoot it in the head with a rapid shot or a pierce or something, and then you're doing, pretty high damage and you're breaking parts. And it's good because you won't be targeted as much, so really, it's a little easier to get around without having to worry about it. Some of the skills you're going to want. You are going to absolutely have to have focus and load up, no matter what. Every single bow set, if it does not have focus or load up, is a waste of a set. Because focus means you're getting more attacks off quicker because you're going to want to charge up to your 3rd charge level. And it uses less stamina because you're charging up the quicker. If you do not have focus on a bow set, you're wasting your fucking time. Load up as well. You have to have it, right? Some guns don't need it, blah, blah, blah. Bows need it. You get that last charge level. It always does a lot more damage. There's a higher damage multiplier. The shot level is different, and it's a higher level. You have to have it, people. You have to have those 2 skills, no matter what. No excuses. Now the next ones are optional. I like putting another stamina skill in there if I can. So either Marathon Runner or Stamina Recover Up. Your pick there. They're really pretty equal to me. I do have a set with Stamina Recover Up that I'll talk about in a minute here that works really well. It's pretty easy to make. And that's really nice because you can practically just keep arrows flying. Because again, your limiting reagent here is your stamina. Like, if you don't have focus, your stamina's going down like halfway before you even get a shot off, and then you got to move again and roll out of the way maybe, and all of a sudden you have no stamina to wait for it to come back up. You're not doing any attacks. It's a fucking waste of time. So any sort of stamina skill on top of focus is going to help even more than that. You can use Constitution, which will help with your rolling and stuff, but I don't really think that should take priority over other stamina skills. Yes, it can be useful, but, lower on the priority scale for sure. I personally think Part Breaker should also be, or Destroyer, whatever one you call it, should be a necessary skill for bows. Unless you're going for just a pure damage one loadout, then, you don't need it, I guess. But I think if you're hunting with a group something, Part Breaker is just, a no-brainer to me. Power coat use, again, if you have a bow that doesn't use power coating because it's already too strong, which a lot of them are. The Diablos bow doesn't have power coating. Pretty sure what is that thing called? The Moran bow doesn't have power coating. It has like everything else. There's tons of bows that don't have power coating, and you're going to want it on there, as best you can. Is it the end of the world? A little bit. Also, Rapid and Pierce shot up, little extra damage modifier. Those can be a little difficult to get, because I believe the Rapid is the normal S up, and that's That's what, an 8 socket skill. So you got to have what, 2 3s and then a 2. But if you have a gem or a talisman or something, you can get that in there. But either one of those will work really well. And then of course evade distance, because you're a gunner. Evade distance works really well just to get out of the way, especially for bows. A lot of times you're waiting until the last second to move, and that's going to really help. So you can also get evade too, but I think you really shouldn't need it if you're smart enough. But evade distance is pretty nice. So the set I was talking about that I made, it's a pretty early on G rank set, which is really nice, and it's pretty easy to make depending on the talisman you have. Breakfast. So the set is load up, part breaker, focus, and stamina recover up. So pretty much all the necessities that I said. So it's a pretty well-rounded set. Does it have the power code up? No, it doesn't, but 4 other really good skills. So it's Celtis Helm Z, the Blade Master, Celtis Helm Z, Nibble Snarf Vest X, Celtis Guards Z, Kushala Wind Wrap. It's the high rank one. The high rank Kushala Waist. And then Duramboros Leggings X, right? And the talisman that I'm using is a +3 destroyer with 3 slots. So really easy to find. I mean, you could find a lot of other talismans that'll work, any sort of focus, with +3 or with 3 slots if you have a lot of focus, or if you have a lot of load up with 3 slots, whatever. It's pretty easy to make. You can mess around with it. So again, Celtis Blade Master Z, Nibble Snarf X, Celtis Z, Kushala High Rank, and Duramboros X. So you have to do a few trade quests to get that stuff unlocked, but it's relatively easy. I think I had it when I was G1. I was able to unlock it all and get all the decorations and everything too. So the bow is really good against pretty much all monsters, honestly, especially the flying ones or the hard to reach ones like Kazu that sticks to the ceiling, or Rathalos. I wouldn't mind using bow against him because he flies a lot. You can knock him out of the sky. That's always really fun, especially with pierce shots. I found it's really easy to do that because they fly pretty straight, so it's easy to aim. Also, monsters with difficult parts to break, like I said, like Najrala's back, it's pretty good to use on. You can use it on Moran because you can attack from the side of the boat like the whole time, which is really awesome instead of just relying on ballistas and stuff. And monsters that actually hit hard and move pretty fast. You wouldn't think that for a bow gunner or a gunner or whatever, that you want to use these monsters that are fast or that hit really hard because you're using the gunner outfit. But I really love using bow against Rajan because of those facts. He hits really hard. I don't want to be anywhere near him, and he moves really fast. I can't catch up to him, so I'm just going to use the bow all over the place, and it actually works really well, especially for breaking his horns. It's hard to get in there because his horns are right in front of him, and that's where literally like 100% of his attacks are. Rajan, except for his little back hop that always trips you over. Then he beats the shit out of you. So I find that, and they're really hard to break. So they take a long time. So I use the bow with part breaker, and I go in there and demolish the horns. It works really well. It's really bad against large monsters. Like I said, except for Moraine, because you can fire from the bow. So like Dumbledore or Galgmazios, they have a huge range. You're probably not going to want to use bow just because they hit really hard too. You can use it against like a Cantor or Canlos. They're not really that bad. But I don't know. They can travel pretty far, and they're really wide girths, so it's difficult to roll out of the way unless you have like evade distance or something. Also stuff with like long range attacks, like the Gravios beam, can be a little tricky with bows, especially the sweeping one. To me, unless you have evade or something for that, if you have a really nice evade bow set. I don't know. That seems a little risky, or at least a lot of high resistance, whatever type of attack it is. So just be mindful of the monsters you're facing. But for the most part, you can use bow against a lot of different monsters. So that's all I have, really. If you want to request a weapon to talk about for next week that I haven't already covered, go ahead and drop me a comment in the video below. I appreciate you guys' patience. I know you're all waiting for Monster Hunter videos and stuff, and trust me, I want to get tons of videos out to you guys, and I'm going to in the future. But for right now, you're going to have to settle with this and the Bloodborne videos I'm going to upload later this weekend. Sorry, guys. But thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and take it easy.